Well, welcome back to another episode of That Fitness Couple podcast. Our guest today is Bella, aka Steak and Butter Gal. She is a 6-year carnivore, ex-vegan, a classically trained pianist studying at the Juilliard School, a carnivore influencer and founder of the Steak and Butter Gang, a private support community of carnivores, ketovores, and carnivore-curious people who are seeking guidance, accountability, and motivation to conquer their health and weight loss goals. Welcome to the show, Bella.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you so much for having me, Corrie-Beth and Mike.
We are so honored that you are here. I know Mike is like itching to ask you the big question.
Yeah, well, the big question, let me just set the stage for everybody. We often hear from people, how am I supposed to eat when I go to a wedding? Or I had this a big
Oh,
event coming up, and what am I supposed to do under these circumstances? Well, it seems like you just recently had a wedding and you solved all those problems for everybody.
yes, yes. So I recently got married to Max, also known as Steak and Butter Guy, my husband, and we got married in Wyoming on the most beautiful ranch. And it was Tyler's ranch. Just gorgeous backdrop, gorgeous weather that day, but absolutely the most amazing food. And the food was steak. I literally had a steak wedding cake, steak cake.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like my dream come true. If we could go back and do it all over again,
We
I
definitely
think that's
would.
exactly what we would be doing. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like you had a number of well-known people in the carnivore space there as well, which was really cool to see. I mean, but this probably was not what you imagined when you were a little girl thinking about getting married and what the wedding day would look like, the food that you'd be getting prepared for everybody. I mean, take
Right.
everybody back to your story. I mean, help everybody to understand, who you are, how you came to be a 6-year carnivore.
Yeah, so I grew up in a traditional Chinese household, and my mom, she really wanted her children, and she had four. I am the second girl. I have a big sis, little sis, and a baby brother. And she just wanted us to have, the best education, the best opportunities to learn and grow as a kid. And so she brought us to Los Angeles. That's where we grew up. That's where she raised us. And she had us all go into the arts. So my mom was actually a basketball player. And because she got a taste of that life and that career, she did not want that for her daughters. She was like, it is brutal. Your health, your body needs to take so many hits. I want my girls to go into the arts. So she had her daughters us do piano, violin, acting, modeling, singing, like literally everything. I just remember going to school after school. It was the rest of the day going to classes, after school activities, learning. And so I turned out to be particularly talented or quick to learn in piano and violin. So she had me pursue classical music. And that's basically what I pursued my whole childhood, teenage years, and college years. And I loved it. I really, really loved it. I just loved how competitive that world was. I am for sure an A-type personality. So it just gave me purpose as a kid and teenager. And then I ended up going to Juilliard for my master's degree. So I'm very thankful that I got those types of opportunities. However, for 6 years since I turned 18, I was vegan. Vegan diet for 6 years straight. It really ruined my health. Like, that's to just put it lightly. I lost my period. I got even worse cystic acne than I could even imagine. It was brutal having to go to school in New York City, show up, and not even have energy or mental clarity to focus on learning these really difficult pieces. I would have to memorize hours of music, and I was struggling. So I started panicking. My weight was also going out of control. It just kept yo-yoing. And I was desperate to heal, but desperate to just feel functional. So that's how bad my mental health and physical health was. But back to my family, Chinese American family, but mostly like traditional Chinese because my mom is definitely a tiger mom. And she would cook us traditional Chinese dishes cooked in soy sauce, cooked in seed oils. So those are the types of foods that I would be eating growing up until I hit 18 and I went vegan.
Okay, we have three type A's here, all very
Love it.
competitive people.
Nice.
What I would love to ask you is, having that competitive spirit, going to a place like Juilliard, which is like top of the echelon in terms of music training, how much did the diet influence your ability to compete? Meaning I'm sure you had that innate desire to compete, but you were saying that maybe there were some struggles with learning and with, retaining the information that you were taking in.
So I can actually give you year one of my master's degree, I was vegan. Year two, I was carnivore. So it's so fascinating to just observe and reflect back to how I felt and how I thought, how I worked vegan versus carnivore. My first year, I had memory slips on stage. So basically, I'll be sitting down at the piano. We're not allowed to read music. We have to memorize all that. So at least 60 minutes worth of music. And I would be forgetting notes, forgetting parts of the pieces. That was very concerning to me because I usually don't have memory slips. Year two, the memory got sharper. I was able to memorize new pieces very quickly, very easily. So you asked, like, how about the competitiveness? I am naturally competitive, yet year one being vegan, I just felt like my body and brain could not catch up. So it was, again, like just very concerning. We would be practicing, I don't know, 6 to 8 hours a day in the practice room. And I just wouldn't be able to focus on any given part of the piece. And I'll be like, wait, what was I trying to practice just now again? So there was a lot of brain fog, like 24/7 brain fog year one. Year two, it was just healing mostly, to be honest. I had so much to heal, yet I already felt a surge in energy within 1 month of going carnivore. And that definitely helped like get to my natural level of competitiveness. And I definitely made the most progress during year two.
Yeah. I was gonna say 6 years vegan,
Yeah,
right? 6
Mhm.
years vegan.
that's
What
right.
made you go vegan and also to do it for
Yeah.
so long?
So I went vegan because I wanted to get lean. That, like, to be honest, that was my motivating goal, was to get lean because I gained the freshman 15 in high school. I was getting puffy and I could not fit into my concert dresses. And I would need to wear those like every single weekend. And my mom, she's not going to go out of her way to buy me like a bigger size. And I didn't want to do that to her. So I just wanted to fit into those concert dresses and also find a quick way to lose weight and stay lean. So what ended up happening was I was in high school, panicking again, Google searched how to lose weight fast. And the girl that showed up and her videos was Freely the Banana Girl. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she to this day still makes content as a hardcore vegan. She, at that time, like this is now a decade ago, she was touting raw till 4, which means you eat raw vegan fruits, raw veg up until 4 p.m. And then when 4 p.m. hits, you get to eat cooked starches like rice, potato, sweet potato. And she said, I eat like this and I eat as much as I want, and I have a six pack. And she does. So I was like, cool, I'll try it. I lost very quickly, actually. I lost a lot of weight, but most of it was water weight and inflammation because I was eating a standard Chinese/American diet. So, of course, it makes sense. I was just losing a lot of inflammation. So initially, because I saw those results, I was like, yes, this is the best diet in the world. I'm sticking to this. I'm all in. And I'm just like that. If I'm all in, I'm all in. Not difficult to stick to anything for me. And it just ended up being 6 years of sticking to vegan because I definitely got brainwashed by the community. Once I entered that community and I started living vegan diet, and most vegans actually will call me not vegan. I was never really a vegan. I was just on a plant-based diet. Then I started getting brainwashed by like, you got to do this for ethics, you got to save the planet, save the animals. So I think that ultimately was what kept me stuck on that lifestyle for 6 years.
Funny how you can get sucked in so easily, and I think we resonate, especially with wanting to do something for the aesthetic reasons. And when you want to do it for the aesthetic reasons, I mean, you'll take any advice that you can get. And it's just interesting that I think about somebody like, what was her name again? I
Freely the Banana Girl.
Really, the
Really?
banana
Yeah.
girl. And I think what a lot of people don't realize, we were recently just talking about this with respect to training.
Yeah.
Sometimes people get results despite what they're doing. And you know, it's only when we take on that activity or that, you know, habit that they're doing, or the way that they're following their nutrition, and we see
Mhm.
how we respond, that maybe suddenly the lights go off and we realize, like, oh my gosh, like this really is not healthy, and we have to change our ways. What I'm curious though also to ask you about was, you said that you had some initial loss, right? You lost some weight, water, inflammation, and what have you. How long until things started going the other way for you?
Yeah. I would say year 1, I was in the honeymoon phase of being so much healthier because I cut out all the seed oils when I went vegan. I also cut out all the processed foods, fast food, junk food, snacks, late night munchies. I cut all of that out when I went vegan because, like, at the end of the day, what Freely was promoting was a whole foods plant-based diet. Absolutely no fake meat products. No. You're just eating plants, fruits, vegetables, and whole cooked starches. So I was eating very clean. Year 1 was fine. Like, I was very happy. Year 2, I would say, is when things went sideways. I started realizing, like, my skin's not getting better, when I went into vegan, hopefully to heal my cystic acne, but it just wasn't getting better. And then I noticed, my goodness, I'm having a lot of chronic bloat. Like, I'm gassy all the time. I go number 2 so much, yet my belly is just never quite as flat as hers. So I don't know. I don't think that lifestyle was right for my body personally. Year 2 to year 6, it just was a consistent downhill.
I mean, I'm resonating so much.
I knew you would be.
Cystic acne,
Right,
IBS, bloating,
right.
all the things. But it's
Mhm.
funny. I mean, we grew up in the same era of, like, there was this, like, hierarchy pyramid of vegans are like the best people, and they're the cleanest, and they care about the environment and the animals, and, like, they are like the top echelon of people. And that's what I wanted to be also. I did vegetarian for 2 years. I was a
Yeah.
nanny at that time.
Oh,
And
wow.
you're like, you nailed it. Year 2, I was like, gosh, I feel so weak. Like, I'm over this. I'm done, and I
Exactly.
moved on. But it's just so fascinating, for this other woman who's been doing this now for 10 years. Like,
Yeah.
what other supplements must you be taking? Like, you can't just be eating fruits and vegetables. There's just simple, I mean, the nutrient crop content is just not there anymore. So it is really fascinating. But what I'm most curious about is, for you to go from vegan to carnivore is like a hardcore 180.
Mhm.
What precipitated that?
So, year 6, I think the turning point was when I got a full panel blood test and my doctor got the results in. She had me go into her office, and this was when I was studying in New York. So, I traveled downtown and I went into her office. She sat me down and she just said it straight and no sugarcoating, which I really needed. That, hey, Bella, like, you are so deficient in some vital nutrients. Okay, we can see it in the paperwork. And you either, I know that you're vegan, you told me, but you either have to take heavily supplements, like supplement very heavily if you want to stick to vegan, or just eat some meat. And I promise you, your health is going to get better. When she told me that, I think that was like a freeing moment where finally someone gave me permission.
Mhm.
Finally, someone opened my mind to just the idea of possibly, let's just try eating meat. I mean, I grew up on it. My mom cooked meat every single day. It's heavy in a Chinese cuisine diet. So then I went back home, I did the same thing, and what I specifically searched was vegans eating meat for the first time. Because at that time, I was a 6-year vegan and I just needed to know if there were other vegan girls, maybe as long as me, who could at least share what they felt when they ate meat, if there was anyone. I felt so guilty. I felt ashamed. I was scared. I just didn't know what was going to happen. And in my head, the worst case scenario was I eat meat, I blow up, and my pimples go crazy. Like, to me, that was very scary. And so instead, what popped up on my laptop was vegan women going carnivore. And I think that was really meant to be. And this is 6 years ago. And to be able to stumble across vegan women going carnivore, specifically Azra Conlu and Kasumi Chris, these two girls openly shared their healing journeys. And just me visibly looking at them, they looked so much healthier. They look like life just went back into their bodies when I saw their carnivore versions. So that absolutely convinced me. Then I went down the rabbit hole. I listened to all the Joe Rogan podcasts, Sean Baker, Kelly Hogan, and I was so convinced I just did it overnight.
What was the first thing that you ate when you made this change? I mean, what was it, what did you eat, and what was it like? What was that moment for you?
So it was the ingredient that I was dreaming about for months: eggs. My mom loved cooking eggs for breakfast every single morning, either Chinese style steamed egg pudding or just her usual scrambled eggs. So I just scrambled up some eggs and Kerrygold butter. That was my first bite of animal foods after 6 years. I got unsalted butter. I did not season those scrambled eggs. It was the most flavor I ever tasted in 6 years. I could not believe it. And not only did it taste so flavorful, I felt like I was levitating. It just felt like somebody injected some type of life back into me. And I felt like I was looking at the world from black and white to color in that moment. It was honestly miraculous. I was so happy. And then I was so addicted to that flavor that in that moment, I promised myself, look, even if I blow up, let's say, even if I gained 50 pounds, I'm not going to restrict myself anymore. Because when I was vegan, I did practice calorie restriction and portion control. But when I went carnivore, thanks to like Kelly Hogan, who talked about eating as much as she wanted to heal, I also promised myself that no matter what happens, even if I gain a ton of weight, I'm just going to finally let myself eat.
You really flipped the switch, though. I like this from a mindset perspective of it went from all being about the aesthetic to then being healing. And this idea that, I don't have to restrict myself. And what's so interesting in having this conversation is, well, anyone who sees this on YouTube or knows you or have seen your Instagram, you're very fit. You're very lean. So
You.
you didn't clearly gain 50
Mhm.
pounds. I mean,
Sure.
what did the journey look like? Like what else started happening in that moment?
So, my first 6 months of going carnivore, I did gain more weight than I like expected. So I personally gained 25 pounds at least. I didn't obsessively weigh myself, but I at least 25 pounds. And just looking at the photos, it looks like it. My clothes, I needed to buy new clothes. I went up in sizes and I embraced it. So I think I got through those initial 25 to maybe even 30 pounds of initial weight gain because of stories and women like Kelly Hogan, because she literally experienced the same thing. She also gained, I think, 25 to 30 pounds when she first went carnivore. And with these women who say the weight gain is good, their whole thinking is your body is gaining all this weight because it finally feels safe, that it's nourished, that it is being fed, that it is getting the nutrients that it needs. So, this initial weight gain is a chance for your body to renourish, heal, and repair. And so I definitely saw it like that. I did not go back to calorie restricting by panicking or freaking out. I didn't do it. I just bit the bullet and I let that weight gain happen. And so I would say the first 6 months I gained, the 25 to 30 pounds. But then the second half of that year is when the weight plateaued and kind of stayed there for a bit, maybe 2 more months. And then it started naturally and slowly shedding. So, yeah, and I see this a lot mostly with women who have a history of binging restricting. That's more on the extreme case, like disordered eating, or even just years and years of putting stress on the body, like calorie restricting 1,200 calories a day for months, years, or even working out way too hard in the gym while not eating enough. So, these tiny habits that you practice every single day, it does add up. It is stress on the body and it will cause hair loss and it will cause your weight to go up before it goes down.
This, I mean, that's incredible. I actually had this conversation not what an hour and a half ago with a new client because she
Yeah.
had been under eating for quite some time, and it was all
Right.
under circumstance of a lot of stress in her life. And she decided that she wants to go this route of eating more towards the carnivore end of the spectrum. I'm not going to say she's full-blown carnivore, but more towards that end of the spectrum. And, before we close the conversation, I said, I just got to set some expectations.
Mhm.
There is a chance that you're going to start doing this and see your weight going up in the other direction before we see it come down. And I was very, proud to hear from her that she fully expected that. She was okay with it.
Right.
But I think
Yes.
what a lot of people also miss in this is that they're looking at the scale and they're looking at body weight.
Right.
And I think what also gets lost in this conversation, especially around people who go from the extreme of a vegan diet to now carnivore, is you've not been providing enough protein, enough amino acids to support healthy musculature.
Mm.
So it's not surprising that during that process, your muscles are atrophying. And now finally, when you get away
Yeah.
and feed your muscles what they need, a
Mm.
good portion of that gain in weight is lean mass. It's not
Mm.
just fat. And I think I'm saying this more to the person out there who's like, okay, I'm kind of sitting on the fence right now. Like I'm listening to Bella, which she's saying makes sense, but I'm scared. What's going to happen? What is it going to look like if I gain 20 pounds? And it's not that you gain the weight and suddenly we're obese, but I would imagine that to some degree you were, because you were healing yourself, you were a lot healthier for it.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I love that you're bringing this aspect up because when we gain weight, it is not the end of the world. And when I look at the photos of me at my heaviest during carnivore, I feel like I still look beautiful. I looked beautiful, strong, and healthy rather than like really inflamed and weak. So even weight gain on a carnivore diet, I have found distributes differently. Like
Mm.
for the first time, I saw gain and growth in my breasts and my butt. Like I really think it helps women develop, you know? Like is
Gore.
Yeah.
right. Especially like thinking back, I went vegan when I was 18, so maybe there was some residual like female development that could not happen because I was not feeding my body the right nutrients. And then it finally caught up when I started eating butter and steak and meat and all that. So I see that absolutely as a possibility for women. And with the weight, the number on the scale, don't even step on the scale if you're watching this and you're scared of that weight gain. Don't let that number tell you whether or not you're making progress. It's not accurate. You cannot look at that number and be able to conclude whether or not your body's healing, getting stronger, getting to the goal that you want to get to. So bone density also happens. So why would you punish yourself if your bones are literally getting denser and heavier because you see a higher number on the scale? Don't let it get to you.
That is so brilliant. And, we live in this society. I mean, listen, we grew up with America's Next Top Model and Tyra
All
Banks
right.
and all this like, be skinny, be thin, be
Yeah.
this. I mean, I remember watching that, like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna look like that. But the focus is on all the wrong things. It's kind of like marketing gave us 100-calorie packs, but never let us think about the actual ingredients that were in it. We're counting calories, not ingredients. And it is just so interesting to finally give yourself nourishing food
Yeah.
and you're nourishing your body. So it's actually going to do what your body was designed to do. I mean, it's a perfect machine, your body. It's perfectly divinely designed. And so we do all these things that pull it off the track. I want to understand, I have a couple like personal questions that we didn't have in our
Yeah.
notes. And that is first, how many sticks of butter do you go through in a month?
Oh, in a month. Well, so me being at year 6 of carnivore versus me, let's say year 1, is drastically different. So nowadays, I would maybe go through like a quarter of a stick in a day, 1 to 2 days. So like a stick per week, I would say, because I just love eating my steak with cold butter. It just adds that flavor, that creaminess that is so irresistible. So now I reach for the butter because it tastes good, not so much because my body is screaming for fats like it was during year 1. Year 1, it wanted the fat so bad that I was eating a stick of butter per day. So that means at least 30 sticks of butter per month, year 1. And absolutely, there were days where I ate 2 sticks of butter happily, you know? So that goes to show if you're eating a high carb, low fat vegan diet, whole foods plant based, you are so deficient in healthy animal fats and saturated fats. You're like practically getting none. I should have been eating avocados, I will admit, when I was vegan, but I wasn't even eating avocados. So I was getting practically zero fat.
Wow.
So I think that's probably why year one I was eating that much butter. And a lot of people will see my content, watch me pull out my sticks of butter, bite into it, and be like, I just can't bring myself to do that. I just can't do it. I get that maybe there are benefits for high fat carnivore, but I just can't even stomach it. And my suggestion is you don't have to, chomp out of sticks of butter. There are many other ways you can incorporate healthy fats in a carnivore diet. It's honestly so easy. You can't even avoid it. Eat fatty meat, ribeyes, New York strips, flank and short ribs are my favorite. Ground beef is naturally fatty. I think I just love my sticks of butter because it reminds me of chocolate bars. Like there's something about it that is so psychologically soothing? Like I get to go to my fridge and take out this bar and just bite into it and immediately felt calmer and better. So I think I've just had a wonderful experience with butter since day one, so I'm not willing to let it go.
I love it. And, I hope people go over to the YouTube so they can see your skin and your hair. I mean, it's just beautiful. You look so
Oh,
healthy. What I think is so interesting too is we have 2 young boys, 7 and 10, and from when they were little
awesome.
and we would bake, they would always try to eat the butter. And
Yes.
I wanna say, like, most people do that, but then we learn, like, you're not supposed to do that. You shouldn't have too much butter and you shouldn't have too much fat. I think the people
Right.
that can't stomach it, it's honestly more of like a learned or programmed trait than it is a natural or innate one, because all
Sure.
babies wanna eat butter.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
I think we,
True.
like, learn our way out of it as opposed to, like, "That's actually
Mhm.
not good for me." I think it's mental.
no,
I
I mean,
agree.
I would largely agree with that because that is how
Would
we
you
all grew up.
lardly agree with that?
Largely, I like how you did that there. Every so often, you really nail it. Every
The
so
carnivore, I'm
often.
sharp.
But
Love it.
but it's true. It's so much of it has been the fear mongering that butter is bad for you, saturated fat is bad for you. Don't eat a whole egg. I mean,
Oh gosh.
it's
No, right.
wonderful that the first thing you had was eggs, but, like, you had the whole egg. So many
Oh,
people, when they go to make this transition, and I'm sure you
yeah.
see this too, one of the biggest mistakes when people try to make that switch from either standard American diet or low-fat dieting, even if they're eating healthy and whole food, is they start eating lean meats. They can't get away from the chicken breast. They
Right.
leave the butter aside. It's egg whites, it's not eggs. And
Right.
I mean, you're intelligent enough not to make that mistake, but again, so many people do make that mistake. And,
Absolutely.
is that something when you're talking with your community or coaching people, is that something that you do see happen a lot?
So I think because there are so many fabulous carnivore advocates and speakers in the community, I really believe most of us have the unified message that don't fear fats. Do not fear the fats when you go carnivore. Do not try to cut them out or eat lean chicken breast. For example, when I exposed myself to this whole carnivore diet idea, I was listening to Dr. Baker and Kelly Hogan. Those two were my go tos. And both of them were saying, eat more fat, eat lots of fat. Both of them were eating like ribeyes every single day. Ribeye is one of the fattiest cuts of meat. So I think most people, when they even expose themselves to carnivore content, which nowadays is why people consider it, is because of all this amazing carnivore content on the internet now. When they see it, there's no way that they're seeing chicken breasts. None of us are eating it. So I think what you see and what you try to mimic or get inspired by will absolutely give you an idea of what the carnivore diet is all about. And most of the meals I'm seeing on Instagram and YouTube are ribeyes, ground beef patties, plus butter, plus, raw cheese and all that. So it naturally looks like to me a very high fat carnivore diet. So in my community, we actually don't have issues at all about people eating too lean. The issue is people asking, how can I eat higher fat? They want to experiment, they want to go towards that end of the spectrum. So we help people easily incorporate more fat if they're interested in doing that.
Mm. I love that. At what point did you decide to then take your experience and bring it online? Because you have grown quite a following and an amazing community. So what was that like for you?
So I would say my first year of carnivore, I was experimenting and just strictly so in it to observe and see if I'm getting the same results as those women. Year two, maybe half year in, I was already integrating myself on Instagram. Yes, now I remember. So I would get very active on Instagram because I would follow all of these carnivore women. This is 6 years ago, so there were only a handful, and I would interact with them, DM them, comment on their stuff, and they would get to know me. And then I started my own account just to document my carnivore meals and progress. And I think at that time, I was like the only Asian in the carnivore community who was so openly sharing, like, this is my healing journey, and this is day one, two, three, every single day. And it started just gaining a lot of traction and eyes because it's very interesting, I think, to the community to see someone that young at that time, also studying in Juilliard because I was playing piano in my stories every day too. So I think it just got a lot of traction when I first posted on Instagram. And from Instagram, a lot of the friends that I was making started telling me, please, we want to see like whole what I eat in a day, you sitting down talking more about carnivore. Can you migrate to YouTube as well? So that's when I started the YouTube channel. So I think it was all very much the community encouraged me, supported me, asked for it. So I decided to give it a go. And I honestly think it's the best thing that has happened to me. Because if I did not put myself out there on the internet, on social media, there's no way I would get to be doing this every single day, waking up feeling so excited to help spread the word of carnivore and actually personally helping people get healthier. So, yeah, very grateful.
Amazing.
That is amazing. And speaking of content, I mean, you put out some amazing content, and I wanted to talk specifically about one that you put out about a week ago, and it was all about people getting stuck with their fat loss while
Mm.
following carnivore. And I thought it was just such a great topic because it is something that does come about. People will get started with carnivore, and maybe after that initial gain, like you, in the second half of the year or year two, they start seeing their fat loss accelerating, but they're still not able to get rid of that last 5 to 10 pounds, and they're struggling. So can we just go into that a little bit?
So this all goes back to what we were discussing earlier, under eating. In my head and from what I've seen in the community, there are two general camps. One is they will not allow themselves to eat more because there's a mental blockage or a real fear of blowing up, gaining weight. So they just restrict, push harder, restrict harder to the point where they're having toddler portions and the body is not feeling safe to lose weight. The other camp is they're under eating, but they don't know it. Okay, so maybe they feel so heavy and all this fat and protein from carnivore feels so dense that they truly feel like they're eating all their body needs, but they're under eating. They're actually under eating. And so in the community, when we have these calls or when we help troubleshoot, we ask very specific questions. Okay, tell us a typical day of eating, just general portions. And a lot of these people who don't think that they're under eating, they're eating 2 strips of bacon and 2 eggs for breakfast. And then they don't get hungry until dinner. And they're having 2 burger patties with some cheese. That's nothing, you know? Like, I don't care how small you are or how inactive you are. If you're an adult, that's not enough. So we encourage and almost push our members to flirt with the boundaries. Let's try to eat more. Let's keep trying to eat more. Let's actually eat so much that maybe we feel a little bit uncomfortable just to see the boundary line, right? And see how that feels. So, one of my coaches, Coach Raymond, he built a whole written out program just to help and encourage people to eat enough. And he calls it priming. I actually did my whole 6 months, initial 6 months of carnivore priming. And for him, because he wants like concrete, easy to follow guidelines, he says just eat 3 meals a day every day for 2 to 3 weeks. And yes, it's going to be difficult. This is not going to be a vacation. You're literally eating like it's your job. and observe, see how you feel, rest, take naps, because after these 2 to 3 weeks, we will guide you to start intermittent fasting and beyond if you want. So, like, just witnessing thousands of people do this priming protocol and get healing in just those initial 2 to 3 weeks has been very inspiring and empowering. And it really confirms that me eating that much my first 6 months was absolutely the reason why I got my period back so quick. It was absolutely the reason why my skin started healing so quick and my brain fog just lifted. So I think not only from my own experience, but seeing so many people experience similar, I will always be a broken record and say, you're not losing weight, you're at a stall, eat more.
Amen.
This
Yeah.
conversation came up in a slightly different fashion. A couple weeks ago, I was talking with Dr. Don Lehman,
Yeah.
and we were talking about the difficulty that some people find in consuming enough protein.
Mm.
And the one thing that we've noticed is that a lot of women do struggle initially with hitting certain
Yes.
protein targets. And I mean,
Yes.
again, to us, they're minimal targets. Let's say 100 grams per day. That's what, like about 16 ounces of meat. And one of the challenges, I guess, is that because so many people come from diet mentality, and I'm gonna say that intermittent fasting per se, but like time restricted eating, right? I mean,
Yes.
the difference between extended fast and just restricting how long you eat. A lot of people come into this already doing time restricted eating, and I think that is
Exactly.
what makes it so difficult for them to start taking the step of consuming enough food because they're so
Yeah.
used to eating in this small window. And
Yep.
like you said, it's easy to get full very fast and be satiated following a carnivore diet, which is why I love your coach's recommendation of having this priming period because we
Mhm.
find ourselves doing the opposite with people. It's they've been eating this way of restricting, and we're saying, no, you got to open up your window. You need more time in a day in order to consume enough protein. And the only way that's going to happen is if you spread it out. So I love
Yes.
that you guys are really pushing on that button that don't get so caught up in time restricted eating right now. Like get the food intake first, then we could
Yes.
talk about time restricted eating later.
Exactly. I'm so glad that you also agree and that you help your clients do the same because this under eating thing, it doesn't help when there are other people in the space, whether or not it's in carnivore community or maybe like mirror, like animal-based keto even. There are still a lot of big voices who say, "Oh, you're not losing weight, restrict harder. Oh, you're not losing weight, you're definitely eating way too much or eating way too many calories." And to me, that's just taking steps backwards. Okay, fine. Maybe if you cut it to the point where it's like 1,000, 1,200 calories a day and you force your body to starve, you will lose the weight. But is it going to stay that way for long? No, it's not. Your body is going to make you pay for it. So I'm really about playing the long game, not about shortcuts. So I'm so happy to hear that you guys do the same.
Well, we come from a bodybuilding background too, where it was very much about, for me at least, cutting fat, going low fat, and my hair was brittle. I lost my
Yeah.
period. I was losing hair
Mm.
by like 2017. It was not a great look for me.
Wow.
So much better now. But the question I have is when you look at food, right? Some people see calories, some people say see taste and flavor, like it's got to taste good. And I mean like processed, the sad
Yeah.
diet, the standard American diet. When
Yeah.
you look at food, what do you say?
When I look at food, I now view food as fuel.
Mm,
I'm not really viewing food anymore as I feel stressed, I feel sad, and this is my escape to feel better. Or it's not even a chance for me to experience the rainbow of flavors. Like, I just want steak. I just want butter, and that's enough for me. So, for a lot of people who go carnivore, they cannot fathom only eating real animal foods, unprocessed too. And I don't even eat salt or seasonings, so I really appreciate the flavors of my animal food meals, just as they are. But for people, they really need to lean on the sauces. Actually, like my husband, he really needs his hot sauces. He really needs his dipping sauces, which I love it. I love cooking for him. And it's great because I get to explore these more creative recipes to also help the rest of the carnivore community who may need it as well. So I understand there is a very real big group of people out there who just cannot stick to carnivore if they don't have these options. And that's fine. Embrace it.
That was actually part of the earlier conversation as well, was that however it's going to become sustainable is
Yeah.
what's most important.
Yeah.
It's not about, we always joke having a carnivore membership card. And if you
Mm.
if you put pepper on something, you use a little spice, it's like somebody's going to come and take your carnivore membership card from you.
You ate a grape? Like what? You know, people get crazy.
It's more about, that sensibility that
Yeah.
there's a way for it to work for everyone. And that's why I love when people say things like, "Oh, I tried that. It didn't work for me." It's like, what part of it didn't work for you? And usually you find that they either took something to a degree that they didn't have to,
Mhm.
because there is that group of people who will be ultra strict and so strict that they
Mm.
hate what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then there's the people who are just completely lax about it and do the dirty version of it. I mean, some people say, "Oh, I tried carnivore, it didn't work." It's like you ate hot dogs and bacon, and that's pretty much it. Like that's not carnivore.
Yeah.
So I,
Mhm.
I think it's so important to get that messaging out.
It is true, and I recently saw on your Instagram that you made a carnivore bread, which I'm like,
Yeah.
"Wow, I need to get Courtney Luna's cookbook and cook something that
Great.
looks so good."
It
How have
is.
you kept things interesting, or do you just really keep things basic for yourself?
So I think I'm just in the naturally able to do hardcore carnivore, group because I when I made that bread, when I made the carnivore pancakes or the cake and all the things that I've explored for Max, I eat it and I'm like, very cool that this consistency can be achieved with just animal foods, but am I going to go through the trouble to cook it again for myself? Hell no. I'm not going to cook. Like, if I can minimize the amount of time cooking so I can, quickly sit down to eat, that's my path to carnivore eating. So for me, my taste buds really feel so excited with just plain meat and butter that I don't need to personally. But I've tried Courtney Luna's recipes. Her cookbook is beautiful. Like the photos, the recipes, everything is amazing. And I think it's so nice that there are options and people like Courtney out there for the people who do struggle, for the people who are naturally more inclined to viewing food as pleasure and entertainment. There's nothing wrong with that. Embrace that. Find those people that love to cook, use their recipes, and then actually, over time, if you can stick to it long enough, most likely you will see your taste buds naturally adjust and only want steak, butter, eggs, cheese.
Mm. The simplicity of it, I think, is everything.
I just wanted to point out how she threw her husband under the bus and said if it wasn't for Max, she wouldn't be doing these things. I gotta fend for my
Max.
fellas out
Max.
there. Yeah, I know exactly. Poor Max. But it's funny in what you're saying, Bella. I mean, like I'm very much like you. You are probably more
Yeah.
like Max, where you
Yeah.
you do enjoy
Mm,
like
Little bit
have
of
that a little
sour.
bit of that foodie
great.
aspect of it. Not
Yeah, no,
typically.
no, 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 I'm thinking of examples, and it's funny though what you said about not craving because like I was a Starbucks, extra caramel latte with whipped cream on
Got it.
top and caramel on top of that, like plug your ears, Mike. Like that's what I would drink before I went to my teaching job
Mhm.
and would wonder like, why am I so bloated? Like, why am I so tired? Why am I falling asleep on the drive home? This is so weird. I'm not eating that much. I mean, I was
Right.
eating coffee and sugar. But the obsessiveness over, like, I was so excited to get to Starbucks to get that and get to the drive-through or go in and smell it and all of that. I mean, yesterday and today, we were so stacked with, like, meetings and things, and yesterday, I literally was like, "Okay, I have 15 minutes." Like, I fried up 5 eggs in Kerrygold butter quick. Today, before this interview, it was just ground beef. I did add with some sour cream.
Mhm.
I need to make it like a taco bowl. I did homemade taco seasoning and cheese and some salsa and an egg, you know? But I filmed making that because old me was, "Oh my gosh, the calories." Then middle of the road me was, oh my gosh, my macros and like, is this going to help me hit? Whereas like most recent version, I'm 2 years into carnivore, you're 3. It's just the nourishment. It's like this is going to make me feel good. It's going to
Yeah.
give me energy. It's going to nourish me. So I resonate so much with the fuel. It sounds cliche for people listening, like food is fuel, but like, guess what?
Right.
It actually is. All that other stuff of like Starbucks and ice cream, like that's actually that's not
Yes.
food at all in any like, confusion of the word. It's not food.
No,
It's an
it's not.
addictive, entertaining thing that you do. This here is food because food is supposed to fuel and nourish you. So I just wanted to drive that point home because I am so with you.
I love that.
I would love to take a little change of direction here for a moment, get away from talking about food. Let's talk about your fitness.
Sure.
what is it
I
that
saw I saw the resistance training workout.
that only resonates slightly with us? I mean,
Yes.
we're so yeah, talk to us about what you do.
I have so much to learn from you both. I am not an expert in this field. I honestly just entered it, just became passionate, maybe kind of unhealthily obsessed. I literally have been loving my fitness journey now that I'm carnivore and fully just 6 years. I'm basically, I can't heal anymore. I feel like I feel like I've healed enough, and I really gave my body 5 full years to heal and more. So I think what was the catalyst for me to start being obsessed with fitness is I saw all these strong women like you, Corrie-Beth, like, look at your arms. You look so good. I can't stop looking at your arms. So, like, seeing these women empowered me. Like, they clearly are building muscle. They clearly have a strong, sexy body. And so I was like, okay, I kind of want that now. Can I achieve that? When I had that idea, can I do it? It was like a new challenge for me. So, day one, I did baby steps personally because I know my relationship with working out and the gym, it's not a good one. I used to hate going to the gym. I would use it as a form of punishment. So I was like, okay, this time I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to start with just body weight movements that I can do when I'm outside with my dog, maybe in nature, soaking in sunlight. So I made it almost this ritual where I got to look forward to it. I would say like a month and a half to 2 months of just body weight. That's when I migrated to the next baby step. Let's do some light dumbbells. Let's do some resistance bands. And then after a month of that, that's when I went to the gym with my husband, learning all of these machines and crazy workout movements. It was a truly like a new world. It is a new world still. And even just doing these 3 little baby steps, my body changed drastically in my eyes. And I have seen muscles pop and grow in places I never saw before. As a Chinese girl, this is crazy, you know? And growing up in a traditional Chinese family where muscles on a female body, if you're Chinese, is like frowned upon or like not really loved or supported. I'm like, F that. I want to be as muscular and buff as I can possibly get just to see how far I can push it. And this is absolutely my A type voice speaking, but I see this as a learning journey. And when I see people like both of you guys, I'm absolutely so empowered and inspired.
Oh my gosh, it's like you're amazing. What I
Oh,
think is so cool about this is I came first into resistance training and later found keto and then carnivore. So it's so
okay.
interesting how we enter our
Oh.
healing journey. And I love that you were like, I can't heal anymore. Like, I got to go take on the next challenge. I love that.
Yes.
It's so intriguing, right? Once we optimize one area of our lives, we want like the next one, like what's next,
Yeah.
And it's so interesting how you see a lot of people in resistance training experimenting with food, or a lot of people experimenting food. They experiment then with fitness or
Yes.
spirituality or whatever it might be. I think it's beautiful and amazing. And even you just saying that inspires us in what we do
Mm.
because that's what we love to do is help people hit new level. I mean, I love what you do in your community, what we get to do in our gyms and our online programs. It's like just building people up to meeting them wherever they are. It's not about you got to eat what I eat or you need to work out the
Right.
way I work out, but rather just these little things can make such a difference. And isn't
Yes.
the most like badass goal just being the
Yes.
strongest, healthiest version of ourselves? It's not the size anymore. I mean, I don't weigh myself. I don't get on a scale. I don't care. I
Yeah.
fit in my clothes, I feel great. And I feel like it's probably very similar to you. And how awesome would it be if we could get more women to reach this place where you feel awesome?
Well, and I just couldn't help but to think that you were describing how, again, you went through this healing journey, and now
Mm.
I feel like you're on a building journey. It's like the
Mm.
healing is
Oh,
done,
I love
now we're
that.
building.
That's so
You
good.
know, I mean,
Yes.
you laid a phenomenal foundation, and it's funny. I think like the biggest hack there is for people to get into their optimal shape is literally this combination of resistance training, carnivore or
Yeah.
carnivore-ish diet. I
Yes.
mean, like you do those two things, and to me, it is like people talk about biohacking and they want to, do all these fancy things. It's like literally do these two simple things.
Well, it's funny.
Resistance train 2 to 3 times a week.
We don't cold
Eat.
plunge. We don't infrared. Like those are all really cool things and amazing. But like, I think that these are like two of like the main foundational things you need is like what you're putting in your body and what you're doing with your body. I feel like
Right.
those things are great, like like addendums. You can add those things to what you're doing, but this is your foundation, right?
That's really like inspiring to hear from you both because obviously now that I'm entering the fitness world, a lot of these fitness voices are saying, "Oh, you must cold plunge, you must get a sauna, blah blah blah." And I want to mirror the same type of mindset that I brought into carnivore eating, which is let's keep it simple, let's do the bare minimum. And so I don't I'm so glad that you guys said it's kind of like accessories. So that's very freeing for me to hear because I really just want to continue to keep it the bare minimum so that it's so idiot proof. I wake up, I do the same thing, and I get the results and I can keep growing. And I love what you said, Mike, about this is from healing to building. When I hear the word building, it really is like a lifelong challenge. I can keep building until the last day that I live. Whereas with healing, you can you can always heal so much. You can only heal so much, right? I really truly believe I've healed 100%, maybe even 110%, that I have this overload of energy that I want to now put into building. So love it.
Goosebumps everywhere.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah, no, it's excellent. And we're excited to just watch and see how you continue to build. I mean, you've built a tremendous thing online. We know that that's going to continue to build. You're doing a great thing with your body right now. Continue to build that. And listen, muscles look great on Asian women. I'm
oh,
just
thank
saying.
you.
Like
I
I've trained
agree.
plenty of them to know that Asian women look good with little muscle on them. So keep
Yes,
keep doing what you're doing for sure.
I love it. Thank you.
I love it. Any last words, advice that you would give to someone that's unsure about training or eating or taking this next step to heal or build?
So I thrive off of conversations like I just now had with you both. I think it really is so important to find your community, your tribe, or even just your accountability buddy, right? It's so much better to do it with somebody or a group of people than to do it alone. And what I've seen new carnivores are prone to is that they feel alienated in their real life. They feel shamed, they feel ridiculed and criticized. So just by speaking to both Mike and Corrie-Beth here, I can tell that they really freaking care about people, spreading the message, helping their clients, and I think you should hire them. So that's my last message.
I love her.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. What we want to do is
Honor you.
honor you,
Oh,
and please tell everybody where they can find you, talk about your community. I know it's like, listen, I come from Long Island. You say gang, I'm like, I'm in.
He's in.
it's absolutely the friendliest, most loving gang in the world, that's for sure. It's called the Steak and Butter Gang. It is a meat eating community. You do not have to be carnivore to join us. I'll give Mike and Corrie-Beth the link so they can put it wherever they want. We do monthly challenges and you can join us anytime. You'll get Zoom calls, so much support, and everything that you need to get started. And if you just want free content, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, that's where I post at Steak and Butter Gal.
Love it so much. We will be sure to link and share and all the things. And this was amazing. And if there's ever anything you need with resistance training, I mean, I feel like we have so many people we could send your way. Girl, I'm here for you. I think you're amazing. And I just thank you so much for being real and also vulnerable and brave to do something different than what others were doing, because it's not about what others think or believe. It's got to be something that resonates with you, and just the inward beauty that you shine outward. It's visible, and just feel really happy for this interview. And thank you for spending the time with us.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you for having me.
Can I say ni hao?
Yes, 你好，谢谢. Oh, that was awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.